Welcome to the Ricky Mathews Show, the show that celebrates the men and women who are working so hard to make this place such an amazing place to live, work, and play. Hey, you've heard me talk about this in the past, and by the way, thank you for listening on 103.1 and, of course, on Facebook or YouTube or your favorite podcast as we celebrate the people of this amazing place. Not just coastal Mississippi, for that matter. That certainly applies to today's show. But you've heard me talk a little bit about early in my life. After my father died, I often said I didn't have a pot to pee in. And I remember my mother once said to me when she came over to my house, she said, let me go get you some groceries. And I remember exactly what was in the refrigerator. There was some bologna, some mayonnaise, some bread, and popcorn. I loved the burnt popcorn back in those days. I mean, I purposely burned it. I just loved it. And I said, no, Mom, you can't get groceries for me. It's really, really important for me to eat those bologna sandwiches. And I think back at those days and think how hard it was, but also this fighter's mentality that I had, this overcoming the odds and, going back to school after having been in pre-med and after having become an advanced paramedic and deciding to go get an MBA. And, I did an internship at the Sun Herald, and the rest was kind of history. But when I read quotes like what I'm about to share with you, I think about those days. And I think we all have a story. And I'm going to really actually work a little harder to get a little bit deeper into some of the leaders that I talk to tell their story. And every leader, unless it was handed to them on a silver platter, and rarely does that actually work out, there is a story of overcoming the odds. And I came across this quote from Jack Dempsey, the famous boxer. Incidentally, he was born back in 1895. But here's what he said. A champion is someone who gets up when they can't. A champion is someone who gets up when he can't. I love that. When you think you can't get up, you got to get up. And the opportunity to work hard, to stay in the trenches, to overcome the odds and find success. Everyone has an opportunity to do that. I don't care what kind of gravity you think you're fighting against. People, if you set your mind straight and you burn the midnight oil and you go at it with dogged determination, you can achieve anything in life you choose to achieve. I believe that. I certainly did. And anyway, a champion is someone who can't get up, who gets up when he can. I love that quote, and it reminds me of my life early in my life. Hey, listen, I've been really looking forward to the conversation we're about to have here now. Jonathan Brannan, who's actually in the communications department at Chevron, we joined each other recently and talked a little bit about his work there and a little bit about his ascension in his professional life. But I wanted to come back and talk about what he does when he's not at work, because that in itself is a really fascinating story. So without any further ado, let me welcome Jonathan Brannan back to the Ricky Mathews Show. And first of all, just say good morning to you. How you doing, my friend?
Good morning, Ricky. I am doing well, and I really appreciate you asking me back on. It's an honor to speak with you. Your intro is so cool, by the way. I was jamming to it.
Yeah, I know. It makes your head kind of nailed it on that one for sure. Listen, God, there's a lot to talk about, and there's so many interesting twists and turns in your life. But before we get into, how did you get so interested in sort of the arts? Let's remind people what you do in your day job.
Well, in my day job, I'm in the corporate affairs team at Chevron, and basically that entails engagement with the community, engagement with the leadership team at the refinery, engagement with the employees there, and then making sure that we keep that reputation that Chevron has built over the years. We're celebrating our 60th anniversary this year. And as you know, Chevron's been such an integral part of the Mississippi Gulf Coast for that entire time, and just the support that they give to education, workforce development, everything. It's a great company to work for, and I'm proud to take the opportunity that I did.
Yeah, as you and I have discussed before, it's one of the economic bookends in coastal Mississippi, with Stennis being on the other side. with incredible stuff going on in between with hospitality and gaming and all of that. But Chevron actually is one of the most strategically, if not the most strategically important refineries in the United States. And the investments that Chevron continues to make in that refinery is really incredible. And as we discussed to some extent when we met last, after Hurricane Katrina, we came to understand how important that refinery was to the U.S. And we're lucky to have it here. They continue, as Jonathan pointed out, to make investments in the community. And I know a lot of the principals who are there now. And it's you get the opportunity, don't you, to work with such a strong team.
You really do. And the fact that Chevron has such a global base, you get to work with talent from all over the world on a daily basis. And then we also get that talent into the Pascagoula refinery in person through the way the company works. So yeah, it is really a unique business of utilizing people's diversity and people's skill sets and really maximizing all of that.
It is really cool, but we'll shift gears a bit. I thought about you recently when I had Caitlin Perry on, Miss Biloxi, who just recently competed in Miss Mississippi, and we've had her on the show a bunch of times. I think she's a terrific young role model for people, and the fact that she's been to Miss Mississippi several times, and the process of maturity that she's going through, I've really enjoyed visiting with her. But anyway, during the Mississippi pageant itself, I watched the majority of it on TV and got to see you there as one of the MCs, and you never know where Jonathan is going to turn up, do you?
Ricky, I've been trying to get in the top 10 for the past 5 years, and they never let me. I just can never get it right. No, it's been an honor, honestly. I've been involved with the Miss Mississippi pageant, and it's not a pageant anymore. It's a scholarship competition. I've been involved with that organization for 5 years, and yeah, I started out as somebody. Actually, Don Moore, who is now at WXXV, but he was at WLOX when I was there, and I got to know him. He's the one who kind of recommended me to start getting involved. And I got involved as an entertainer first, just singing and doing the performances on stage. And then they started figuring out that I could, read, speak English. So so they asked me to start stepping into the MC role, and that's what I've been doing for several years now, and it's been a blast. I mean, it's become one of my favorite weeks of the year, going up to Vicksburg and getting to hang out and really, one of the things, like you said with Caitlin, role model, all of these ladies, what we see them put on the stage is a small fraction of the work that they actually put into getting to that stage, and then keeping up what they're doing. It's a full-time job. And so I've been impressed each year when I go back, and these ladies who have done it multiple times, like Caitlin, and then Vivian, who is Miss Mississippi this year. This is her 5th year to compete, and it paid off for her. She's Miss Mississippi this year, and man, the amount of work that she's put in is incredible. All those ladies, I'm impressed.
It is impressive, and as you point out, it's not a pageant any longer. At least they don't refer it that way. But the personal development, the unbelievable dedication they had to learning to represent themselves well, to get up on current events, to do everything they need to do to be essentially a role model for any young person that might look to them. And their own personal maturation during that process is something to watch, isn't it?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it really is. And I've gotten to see, several of these girls from year to year. And man, yeah, the amount of just well-rounded what they need to develop and what they need to know is pretty amazing. I don't think I could have done it, especially at their age. I'm an old guy now, so.
Well, listen, singing, we'll talk about an upcoming event around that. You've been in movies, you've been on TV. You just you're kind of a Renaissance guy. But you had an interesting role in a specific movie that kind of gave you a little notoriety. Talk about that.
Yeah. And I think I know what you want. It's a B horror movie. No, I'm just kidding. I
Yeah.
was in this movie called Pitch Perfect, and it was all filmed in Louisiana, and it was actually mostly filmed on the campus of LSU. The parts that I was in were not. They were filmed at the Riverside Convention Center there. It was supposed to look like New York.
Hey, let's do this. I didn't realize we were toward the end of the segment. When we come back on the other side, we'll talk a little bit about this unique role that he had in this movie. And I want to hear what happened up to that moment. What is it that introduced him to the arts, that got him so focused on all of this? When we come back, we'll continue our conversation with Jonathan Brannan. Welcome back to the Ricky Mathews Show. I'm my friend Jonathan Brannan with us. He's on the corporate communications team at Chevron, formerly with WLOX in the Jackson County Chamber. And he has a really interesting, very artsy kind of focus when he's not around. He sings, he MCs, he's been in movies. His wife is talented. His daughter is really talented. She just recently had some accolades. We'll come back to all that before we get done with this conversation with him. But when we went to break, we're talking about the movie Pitch Perfect, which actually I think probably was a pretty popular movie. And you had an interesting role in that movie. So talk about that.
Yeah, Ricky, I think it took a lot of people by surprise, especially the people who made it with how popular it became. But yeah, so basically I auditioned for this movie, not really knowing what it was, but I ended up going into this singing audition process and callbacks and all this in Louisiana, in Baton Rouge. And at the time, I was actually in the men's a cappella group at USM as a senior in college, and turns out they really stretched my acting skills. I got cast as a member of a men's a cappella group as a senior in college at the same time. So yeah, I really had to stretch. But basically, I was in the main guys a cappella group, who's in the very beginning of the movie, right when the Universal logo goes off the screen. There's the group, and it was so cool because it was a very minimal part, but the way it was situated was I was in a scene that had to be filmed when all of the other major on-stage scenes were filmed. So I got to hang out with all of the main players of the movie for the entire time I was filming and rehearsing. I mean, we got to rehearse in this building in downtown Baton Rouge for weeks and then film. And so like I got to go out to birthday celebration with Rebel Wilson one night, and the whole cast was there. Adam, all of them, Anna Kendrick, Brittany Snow, all of them. Brittany Snow invited me and my wife to, she had a nonprofit that she was a part of called Love is Louder. That's her nonprofit. And I think it's an anti-bullying nonprofit, very good work. And she invited us to come to their party that they were having in downtown New Orleans. And I just happened to be part of that little small group of people who were invited to that. And so it was a really interesting, really cool opportunity to get to see how all of that world works. You know, the filming, they had masseuses on set, you know, giving people massages. They had, you know, a craft, all the people were there feeding you. And yeah, I felt like a movie star for a little bit there. And I'm only on, if you blink, you may miss where I show up on screen, but it was fun. And it's actually spurred, of course, sequels to that movie. And then there's been a TV spinoff from that movie. So yeah, it got a level of success that I don't think they were quite anticipating when they made it.
Hey, what was interesting about the movie, and I remember just a little bit about it, but it's not the kind of movie you just turn on and let the actors ad lib. It's a very choreographed thing. So it was inspired. You said that the success sort of blew the directors and producers away, but regardless, it was a very well orchestrated movie, though, wasn't it?
It was very strategic, very planned. It was cool. One of my best friends in high school, still is one of my best friends. I referred him to the movie, and he actually got to be in another one of the a cappella groups in the movie. His name is Sawyer McLeod. You should look him up. He's really great. But just such a cool experience, and all of that happening right down the road. We don't think about that, but Louisiana, Georgia, everywhere in the South kind of is booming still with productions and movies, and there's a lot of opportunities if people want to get involved with that kind of thing.
Yeah, and I've actually had leaders of the film production industry here in Mississippi, and Mississippi's holding its own pretty well, and in spite of the fact that we don't have the incentives that, say, as you mentioned, Georgia and Louisiana have. I'm familiar with both of them, had newspapers in both of those states that I had responsibilities for, so I watched a lot of this kind of unfold. But Mississippi has gotten serious about this and has had great leadership in this arena. But okay, so when you trial for that part, you said at Southern, and you're on the a cappella group there. Man, what was happening in the years ahead of all that made you so interested in music, et cetera?
So my parents are both very musical. My dad actually owned a music store in Hattiesburg for quite a while. He was a manager of another music store for a long time before that. Both play the piano really well, both sing. I mean, we would sit around at home around the piano singing hymns growing up, listening to, honestly, I got my love of vinyl records from them. We would listen to Dean Martin, Frank Sinatra on vinyls. And my dad did a lot of kind of theater growing up in his younger years. And so when I don't think I even started really on stage until I was about 14 or 15, doing just summer community theater kid camps with a company called Treehouse Players. I didn't know what I was doing. I went in and auditioned. We did Wizard of Oz one summer, and my audition song was "I've Been Working on the Railroad." So I came in, and that kind of started it all. And the performances that we had with that group were just so elevated for what it was. They were at the Hattiesburg Sanger, which is a beautiful theater, but at the same time, the sets were really great. The kids who were performing with me were great, and it just gave me this bug that bit me, and I started getting involved with the community theater in Hattiesburg, started getting involved with anything that I could, the big band in Hattiesburg. And so it really just kind of grew from there. I knew that I wanted to kind of keep that thread of arts alive no matter what I was doing.
But the truth is, you had to have the talent, so you could love music and be connected. I mean, like me. I mean, my mother was a piano teacher, and so we had a piano at the center of our universe for most of my life. I learned to bang on it a little bit, but my real love was drums and percussion. I started playing when I was in 5th grade, and I probably would have gravitated towards something involving singing, but the problem was I couldn't keep a note. I didn't have a good tone. I couldn't sing. It's interesting, when I'm in church today, I love church music. I love old hymns. It's just, I love those, and I love to sing them. And my grandkids think Pawpaw can sing quite well. But the truth is, no one in my family can keep a tune. That's the sadness of it all. So we look at someone like you, Jonathan, and we envy you, because you really do have a wonderful voice and a perfect pitch, which is really you had to have the talent, and you must have figured out somewhere along the way that you had a pretty decent voice.
Well, geez, you're making me blush, Ricky. No, I appreciate that. Honestly, sometimes I think a lot of it is people just having the confidence to try it. And once somebody tells them, "Hey, you actually can sing well," that confidence just keeps you going. Like I'm a firm believer. I know that it may not be true, but I believe it, that given the right circumstances and the right training and whatever, everybody could sing. But that's just my opinion on it. I'm sure you have a lovely voice, Ricky. We should do a duet sometime.
We should.
Dave Delk on the show.
Hey, but you know what's interesting about, if you go back and look at the love of music and how that connected you to some interest you had in the arts and the way you started to explore, from acting to singing to emceeing to whatever it is you do in a wide variety of areas. the process that you've gone through from a young guy to where you are today is very similar, actually, to what Miss Mississippi contestants would go through, and that is about gaining confidence, the ability to stand up with confidence and represent yourself. Your work in TV, your work as a communication expert today at Chevron, all of those things sort of. They just, it's like a snowball going down the hill, and these experiences add on and they help create confidence and ability. And by the way, none of what you did is easy. It requires incredible practice and focus and all of the things that go with that. But that helps you be better in life, doesn't it?
Oh, it absolutely does, Ricky. And I appreciate you saying that. And, I'm fortunate to be a product of two parents who really just said, you can do it. Whatever you want to do, you can do it. And they built that level of confidence from a very early age with me. And it made me realize that, hey, if I want to do a gig over here with some musicians, I can do it. If I want to go try to act on stage, I can do it. If I want to go into a corporation, I can do it. I've always had that voice in the back of my head, and it came from them. Honestly, my mom and dad both really supported me through it all. So I really appreciate you saying that.
I think music has a way of helping you find your soul, helping you find yourself. Certainly that was the case with me. I said oftentimes that my music background saved me a lot. My love of the outdoors and drumming and what that was all about saved me. When we come back on the other side, we'll talk a little bit more about the sort of the developmental nature of music and how it helps you evolve as a person. And as we continue our conversation with Jonathan Brannan on the other side, we'll see you after this. Welcome back to the Ricky Mathews Show. I'm visiting with my friend Jonathan Brannan. And as I said at the beginning of the show, I'm going to work a little bit harder to go a little bit further back with some of these leaders to find out where these crossroads were in their lives. For Jonathan, I think part of the crossroads for him is the way he began to dabble in the arts and the influence his parents had on him as people who loved music. And but still you can have the love, but you still got to do the time in the trenches to learn. I ran across this great quote. I probably will destroy her last name, but it's Babe Didrikson Saharias. Anyway, she was actually a golfer, believe it or not, back in 1911. But she said this: the formula for success is simple: practice and concentration. Then more practice and more concentration. But you know what? That is so true. I mean, I remember, trying to master drumming. Let's just, that's just one example, but master drumming, man, does it take a lot of time. Just sit you and a drum or a practice pad practicing over and over and over and over again. That's the only way you're going to get good. That's true about life, to be honest with you. Life takes a lot of practice, but you got to be willing to do the time to enjoy music and be semi-decent at it, don't you?
You absolutely do. And, going back to that quote, the background of that quote is probably even more deep than we understand, because she was a golfer in 1911, you said, which
yes.
It's still a male-dominated sport today, but especially back then, she probably had to felt like she had to practice even more than her male counterparts. So that's very deep. And it does ring true for anything that you want to do in life. If you actually want to do something well, you have to dedicate yourself to it as much as you possibly can. So it takes a lot of time, a lot of practice.
It evolves in, it evolves in a bunch of different ways. But say the culmination of the evolution is that you get the opportunity to do things like this Great Southern Club benefit that's coming up with Center Stage. Your love of big band. There's an old soul in you, isn't there, Jonathan?
Oh, yeah, there is. And it goes back to, that was the kind of music we listened to, the big band music. And the first time I actually got to perform with a live big band was, I don't know, it might have been 20 years ago. 15-ish. And oh, it just makes you alive. And I fell in love with it. And honestly, I can say that performing with big bands is really why I'm in any of the careers I am today, because I started singing with the Coast Big Band when I came to the Coast. And Karen Abernathy, one of my, I love her. She's one of my best friends on the Coast. And she actually hooked me up with the job at WLOX. I asked her one day, hey, do you know of any job openings? And she said, yeah, send your demo tape to Brad Kesey, blah, blah, blah. I said, first of all, what's a demo tape? Second of all, who's Brad Kesey? But no, don't tell Brad I said that. I love you, Brad. So if it wouldn't have been for that, if I would have not started singing with the Coast Big Band down here, I would not have started that career that led to so many other doors opening. And so, that's one example of it. And it does tie into this Center Stage show that's coming up in a few weeks at the end of July. It's opportunities like that I love, why I love living on the Mississippi Gulf Coast. There are so many options for arts and getting plugged into theaters, getting plugged into different musical groups, choirs, bands. It's just rich down here. I don't think a lot of people realize how rich it is, just the community. So we're looking forward to the Center Stage show. I don't know if you want me to tell a little bit about that.
Yeah, you go ahead and give the details of that. Yeah.
So the origin of it is that Center Stage is being shut down for a little bit in Biloxi for some renovations. So they're taking Center Stage on the road. And so this show is going to be at the Great Southern Club, like you said, which is the top of the Hancock Whitney Bank. And it's going to be a dinner theater, cabaret style. You've got four of the best singers on the coast, and then they picked me as well. So you have me, Abrielle Smith, Chet Landry, we all know Chet, Jennifer Densing, and Lauren Broussard. And we're all five going to be singing solos, group numbers with, there's going to be a small little band, and it's just going to be a good time. Real intimate setting. We're going to be able to interact with the audience. Lots of good numbers. The name of the show is Let's Misbehave. So it's going to have some fun, irreverent numbers throughout the night that are going to be a lot of some debauchery, I guess you could say, that we're going to have throughout the evening. So it's going to be fun.
Hey, listen, I've told my story, but when I was a child, I guess once you have dyslexia, you always have it. But I struggled through first 12 years of school, eventually learned how to learn, and, the rest is kind of history. But in my mind, I always tried to explain to people that I see things in pictures. Even when my memory, I remember things in pictures. It's an odd thing, but I never really could quite understand it until later in my life. I came to appreciate what it was I had. But I can literally see pictures, and that's one of the reasons my memory can be sharp is that I remember the picture, and that's how I remember. Okay, but I was always frustrated that I couldn't convert the picture onto paper. I mean, I can picture it very distinctly. I can picture aspects of it very distinctly, but I can't draw the picture that I see. You follow what I'm saying? And so you have this, once you kind of have this creative capability, it tends to permeate more parts of your life. And I have to tell you, your 5-minute sketches really did get my attention.
Oh, wow.
Because your ability to see something and actually just jot it down in less than 5 minutes. It's really, there's something going on there that will evolve and be something special for you, I bet.
Well, I appreciate that. That was another one of the products of going up to Vicksburg. I had that time that I could go out and just, I love sketching. I don't know if you can tell, but I don't like sitting still very much. So if I'm not doing something with my hands, or if I'm not creating something, I feel like I'm not being productive. So I spent that energy in creating these 5-minute sketches. I'm glad that you enjoyed them. I did them really for me, but I just decided that since I was doing it, I might as well video it, put it out there. So yeah, no, I appreciate that. That means a lot that you would say that. And again, it's all about that, just trying it, just confidence. Yeah. A lot of people may not realize that they have the ability to look at something. I believe that we were created with the ability to create. And so I think that a lot of artists, the difference between an artist and a non-artist is just they take the chance and they try it. And
Yeah.
so, yeah, I appreciate you bringing that up.
My daughter Tori paints, and I always admire the work that she does. What's interesting about your sketches, though, is that as you sit there, let's say you're looking at a building, a historic building of some sort. What's interesting is that you're drawing it from the perspective of where you're sitting. So, architecturally, just the geodynamics of what you're doing, you get that perspective right. That's what's interesting to me, because that's hard to do, actually. Where did that come from?
I'm going to bring you back again to my parents. I mean, my mom used to drive me around the Mississippi countryside to old churches, and we would sit there and she would let me just draw them. And, at the time it was something fun to do, but it just created that, being able to see something and figuring out the perspectives and just putting what you're seeing on the paper. It started from there, really. I mean, she really helped foster that.
It's very interesting. I mean, where do you see that going for you? I mean,
absolutely nowhere.
No, but is it gonna fall through in painting? What's the possibilities?
I've dabbled in some watercolor. I did a little bit of watercolor painting for a while, and I really enjoy it. I'm not an amazing colorist, and maybe I love watching Bob Ross videos. I'm just not. That's not where my strength is, I don't think, but I do love doing it. And I don't know, Ricky. I mean, it's another one of those things that I believe that creativity can lend itself to a lot of parts of your life. Like my job at Chevron, I feel like I can use my any job that I've had on the coast, I've been able to channel my creativity. Hey, act like this is one of your drawings right now. Act like this is a painting, and put that kind of heart and soul into whatever you're doing. And it's really, that's been kind of my philosophy of being, when you draw something, when you put something on paper that you see, you kind of become a part of that art and kind of a part of something bigger than yourself. And that's what I've tried to do. In every step of my career, my main goal has been, hey, I want to be a part of something bigger. I want to be a part of the next step that's bigger.
Are you familiar with Wyatt Waters?
Oh, I love Wyatt Waters. So that's why I'm like, I'm
Good Lord, his ability through his watercolor to see a scene and reflect it. Oh my gosh, it's talented.
Yeah. No, it's
hey,
amazing.
When we come back to Jonathan Brannan, we'll talk about the love of his life, his high school sweetheart. She's talented in and of herself, and their daughter just did an interesting deal. So it's all in the family. We'll see you after this break. Welcome back to the Ricky Mathews Show. I always enjoy these kinds of conversations because you really never know where they're going to go. But I knew when we planned this that it was going to be great and that we wouldn't have enough time to cover all the bases because Jonathan Brannan has done so much in his life. He really enjoys life. That's what I really enjoy about him. That in itself is something that is contagious. As I mentioned, his wife Alyssa and he were high school sweethearts, and they are proud parents of a daughter, Eden, and we'll tell you something that Eden did recently, and a son, Oliver, that we talked about actually the last time we met. Jonathan had won a Most Talented Beard America contest that helped fund the adoption of Oliver. It's a great story. But let's come back to Eden and your wife. Tell me about Alyssa.
Well, she's the boss. She's the CEO of the family. I always say that she is the brains of the operation. She's got her engineering degree. And then I follow that up with, I'm actually the smart one of the family because I somehow convinced her to marry me. So I feel like I'm the mastermind here. She is being duped and hoodwinked, but hopefully she doesn't figure this out anytime soon. We have been married for 11 years. This past week was our wedding anniversary. And so time has flown and it feels like just yesterday, but yeah, a lot of life has happened in those 11 years. And we started, like you said, we started dating our senior year of high school. So
what is she like in terms of the arts?
She loves to, she probably, I would argue, loves to sing and perform more than I do in some aspects, because a lot of time when I'm performing, I don't know if I know you know my friend David Delk. We both have a very unique love of performing, because we love performing for an audience. We love that feel. Alyssa couldn't care less about an audience. She loves to just sing for the sake of singing and performing. She loves being in shows. She's done a lot of community theater on the coast and in Hattiesburg, and she loves that aspect of it. But she honestly just loves it because she's passionate about it, and that's kind of her, again, her creative side. She's got her engineering side, but her creative side comes out in those cases. And she's one of those that likes to direct as well. Like I said, she's the boss, so she could be a producer or a director or whatever. She has that mind, that mentality for it, so she loves it.
That's cool. It's so interesting. You mentioned David Delk, incidentally. One of the more popular shows I've had is with David Delk. What a tremendous impact he's had on the coast play, culture. Shorty Sneed and the time I've spent with Shorty, and looking back with him and with Dean and Tim Holloman talking about Boyce Holloman's contributions to the little theater singing in coastal Mississippi. So cool. So many amazing people. Eden had a nice little distinction lately. Tell me about that.
She did. She's gotten that bug too. So she has been performing for a couple of years, actually. And so Cliff Thompson, who, by the way, is actually directing the Center Stage show that I'm going to be in. So he's directing me at the same time that he was directing my daughter in Matilda Junior this past couple of weeks. They had a summer camp at Wings in Gulfport, and that's such a cool program and such a cool space. And the kids, they're gaining that confidence through that program that's going to make that difference, like we've been talking about this entire show. The fact that they're able to get up in front of people and do what they do is really inspiring. And so Eden got to be in Matilda Junior. She was Hortensia, one of Matilda's friends in the show, and she enjoyed it. And she's going to be in Moana coming up in a few months, weeks, something. But she loves it. She loves being on the stage. She loves performing. She's a competitive cheerleader. She has been competing with Cheer Force One in Ocean Springs since she was 3 or 4. And now she's doing all the, making me nervous and sweat while she's being thrown around in the air and all that kind of stuff. So she's gotten the bug for sure.
That's so cool. It's amazing watching young people develop, and especially when it's your young person that's developing. It's amazing. That's what life's about, my friend.
It is. Precisely. Precisely. We've got our 2-year-old coming up that, if he doesn't do something with his energy, he's going to be in jail, I'm pretty sure.
Hey, man, gosh, do I know the feeling. We've got 4 grandkids, and the youngest is 2. And he'll do something and look you right in the eye smiling, because he just knows, I mean, aren't they, they're both exploring and brilliant at the same time. Yeah. And you just know they know the joke, don't you?
Yep. You just got to go along with them.
So look, it's been fun watching you here in coastal Mississippi. As you think about your goals, beyond all that you've done, what are some of the things you still want to do in the short time we have left?
Well, I like I said, my main goal is I really want to try to be a part of something bigger, no matter what I'm doing, than myself. And I always want to be rooted here in South Mississippi, raising my family here, and we'll see what life gives us, where God.
I love the way that you do what you do in a way that gives back to the community, and that's a perfect fit for the work that you're doing now with Chevron. So I look forward to staying in touch, man. You're a great citizen and someone I've enjoyed getting to know better, and look forward to staying in touch as we go forward.
You too, Ricky.
You bet. It's been a pleasure. This has been Jonathan Brannan. Have a great day, and we will see you tomorrow.